We would like to thank the conference organisers for this opportunity to present at this event, and we're happy to take any questions about this work by email. I'm Jane from the University of Birmingham, and I'm going to be joined today by Professor James Swofford from South Alabama, the USA, and Dr. Meng Tong from the University College London. Saji Chowdhury is currently away on paternity leave. The title of our paper today is The UK or the Eurozone, which common currency area can work for Northern Ireland after Brexit? And our paper starts with the outcome of the June 2016 vote on the referendum, whether or not to leave or remain within Europe. In this figure, gold means the region voted to remain within the EU, and blue means the region voted to leave. As you can see, Scotland overwhelmingly voted to remain in Europe, whilst England and Wales clearly voted to leave, and Northern Ireland voted to remain in the EU. However, overall, it was a narrow decision to leave with a turnout of 72%, and the majority was 51 to 49% to leave Europe. So, our motivation then, as we've just explained, is the situation that Northern Ireland voted to remain in Europe, but the UK voted to leave, and this has raised the issue of the possibility of Irish reunification. However, the divisions remain deep, and these divisions have existed between Northern Ireland and England for over 500 years. Many of you may remember the troubles that existed during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, in which many people died or were injured, and these were only resolved in 1998 by the Northern Ireland Act and the Goodwill Peace Agreement. The recent Brexit vote has reopened the wounds that were temporarily healed by the Good Friday Peace Accord and could lead to either the reopening of the Troubles or the Brexit agreement being derailed. Just a brief word on that 1998 Northern Ireland Act. It provides that Northern Ireland will remain within the UK unless the majority of the people of Northern Ireland vote to form part of a united Ireland. And so important is this concept that Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, visited Northern Ireland on the 27th and 28th of June in 2016, directly after that Brexit vote, to show their solidarity with the people of Northern Ireland. So, what's wrong with a border stretching across the centre of Ireland, splitting Northern Ireland with the Republic of Ireland? Well, post-Brexit, the two parts of Ireland are now in different customs and regulatory regimes, which could mean products being checked at the border. In 1998, the Northern Ireland Act expressly excluded border checks through a comprehensive peace and trade deal. Great Britain is no longer in a customs union with the European Union, and Northern Ireland is also no longer legally in the EU customs union, but remains an entry point into it, creating a de facto customs border down the Irish Sea. So as you will appreciate, the border is a matter of great political, security and diplomatic sensitivity in Ireland. Therefore, the UK and the EU have agreed that whatever happens as a result of Brexit, there should be no new physical checks or infrastructure at the frontier. No one wants to break the 22-year fragile peace deal. And this is where the controversial backstop comes in. It could have involved Northern Ireland alone remaining in the EU single market and customs union, leaving the rest of the UK free to strike trade deals. However, it's been ruled out by the Johnson government. So this paper tests whether or not Northern Ireland forms a common currency area with the Republic of Ireland and the rest of Europe. Do Great Britain and Northern Ireland in the Eurozone meet the microeconomic foundations and conditions for a common currency area? So if this is true, it would mean that people in the Great Britain and the United Kingdom all hold and use the currency, the notes and coins, in the same way. We treat the assets as equal substitutes. We asked, should an independent Northern Ireland join the euro? And then, finally, we consider the future future of the economy and future trade deals. So thank you very much. Over to you, Jim.
Hello, I'm Jim Swofford, and I'm going to do the next few slides. In this paper, we take advantage of weak separability, which is also called functional separability, and you can see a definition of weak separability on the slide from Blackerby et al. Weak or functional separability allows empirical work to be more tractable. That is, researchers can focus on a smaller number of variables if they can show weak separability. It's a weaker, more realistic condition than strong separability. And this is weak separability over goods versus strong separability over goods. For our purposes, if weak separability holds, then we can partition the data set into assets or monetary goods and have them examine them separately from other goods, including leisure. Weak separability is useful for studying the demand for meat. You don't have to know changes in the price of bananas or carrots. This is two-stage budgeting, where the consumer allocates expenditure on entertainment, expenditure on meat, expenditure on vegetables, makes their decisions within those categories and is unaffected by the price of goods in other categories, and they make their decisions just based on the goods within the category. That is, the marginal rate of substitution between pork and beef are independent of changes in the price of bananas or cars. For a central bank produces disaggregate monetary data, and they sometimes aggregate it into monetary aggregates. So similarly, the marginal rate of substitution for cash and savings deposits is independent of the price of bananas or carrots. In fact, weak separability is a condition for the existence of monetary aggregates consistent with economic theory. These aggregates have been known as, or are known as economic monetary aggregates before they were called the B&ESI monetary aggregates or monetary services indexes in the parlance of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. In fact, the seminal paper in this area was entitled Economic Monetary Aggregates, an application of index number and aggregation theory. Weak separability is the aggregation theory part of it, the aggregation theory over goods part of it. And we use this to try to identify whether or not people in different areas, possibly countries, are using the same assets as money. To us, it's unlikely that monetary policy will be very stable if one group of people in a common currency area are using cash as money, another using cash and savings deposits as money. And so we're looking for this common aggregate among the countries in hypothesized areas. Two ways to test for this. Two ways to test for maximization behavior or weakly separable utility maximization. One is parametric tests, and pros are they're stochastic. You can have a stochastic error curve. The cons are you're assuming a particular underlying functional form of the utility function, and so your tests of behavior are a joint test of the functional form and the behavior of weakly separable utility maximization. And they're parameter and less data intensive. The second approach is reveal preference or non-parametric reveal preference testing. The pros are that there's no assumption about the underlying utility function, and any number of data observations greater than one are okay. You can run the test. Not that we think you should draw inference on 5 data points, but you can run the test. The cons are that they're non-stochastic, and we know human behavior is stochastic, so that's a pretty serious con. I've written papers using both approaches, and both approaches together sometimes. It depends on what you want to do, and in this case, we want to use reveal preference tests because all we're concerned with is weak separability. Varian 1982 shows that if the data are consistent with the generalized axiom of reveal preference or CART, the data are consistent with a well-behaved utility function. GARP allows for more than one consumption bundle to maximize utility. That is, there can be flat parts of the utility surface. GARP is a necessary condition for weak separability, and Varian 1983 shows sufficient conditions for weak separability. We use variance non-par program that uses a sufficient but not necessary condition based on checking GARP for the overall good when the assets or goods in the sub-utility function have been aggregated into an aggregate. And since we're talking about revealed preference, it's probably good for us to think of an example. Imagine we're on budget constraint LM, and the consumer chooses point F. And then prices change so that the consumer is faced with budget constraint JK. Well, if the consumer chooses B, that doesn't violate revealed preference because F is strictly preferred to B. If the consumer chooses E, that also doesn't violate revealed preference because when E is purchased, F isn't available, and when F is purchased, E isn't available. Now, consider if we're on budget LM and the consumer chooses A. Well, then when prices again change and we're back to budget constraint JK, if the consumer chooses E, E is strictly greater than A and wasn't available at the earlier budget, so there's no violation of revealed preference. But if the consumer chooses B, well, then the consumer has chosen A when B was available and then chose B when A was available, and that's inconsistent with utility maximization. All right, that's my part of the paper, and I'm going to hand off to the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. Unfortunately, Sajid is not here today, and thanks for his data collection support and software usage. Apart from the usage of GAP to testify the weak separability from consumption size, we also use various statistical methodology to testify if the variation of lending series is the same at different geographic scopes. To do so, we obtain all the non-monetary data including gross value added, consumer price index, labor hours worked, and population for the UK and the Northern Ireland from the Office of National Statistics. We also collect wage rates for the UK and the Northern Ireland from official UK labour market statistics. We obtain the monetary data, which are notes and coins, and benchmark interest rates for the UK and the Northern Ireland from the Bank of England Statistical Interactive Database. We use real GVA for the UK, for Northern Ireland, and for the UK without Scotland as our geographic scope of real goods sector measurements. Since CPIH is a new measure of consumer price inflation, including a measure of owner-occupiers' housing costs, we use the CPIH to convert the consumption and the money series into real terms. We assume CPIH for Northern Ireland is the same as that in the UK because no separate price index is computed for the Northern Ireland. Finally, we use the working population having an age of 16 plus to convert the consumption, leisure, and the money series into real per capita terms. Our weak separability result shows that the utility that gains is indifference between holding currencies and other consumptions under different geographic scope in the UK. It supports the common currency hypothesis for the Northern Ireland within the UK at a macro level rather than gravity or trade influential impact by the EU partner before the Brexit referendum. On the other hand, we explore our analysis to industrial production activity. The pie chart shows the mean shares of small medium enterprises and household lending in Great Britain and the Northern Ireland during our sample period. There is only 6.2% and 2.2% of small medium enterprises lending and household lending, respectively, suggesting the tiny economic size of Northern Ireland in the UK. We use Wilcox Mann-Whitney test, median chi-square test, Kruskal-Willis test, and the Van der Waals test to show the variation between lending series in Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Taking Wilcox Mann-Whitney test, for example, with over 20 observations, we look at the z-table and reject the hypothesis if z-score value is smaller than negative 1.96 or over positive 1.6. Our results all show that we should reject the new hypothesis that lending series in Northern Ireland is the same as the Great Britain. In summary, our GAP results support common currency area for the UK at various geographic and regime horizons. However, the lending series variation may still leave the common currency area's conclusion doubtful. Therefore, the household and business in Northern Ireland may still suffer extra transaction costs than the rest of the UK under the current monetary system.
Thank you, Meng. So we conclude that currently the United Kingdom is a common currency area. An optimum currency area is defined as the broadest possible common currency area, so the UK would be the optimum currency area, or the geographical region in which it would maximise economic efficiency to have an entire region share a single currency. So the exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union has now increased the likelihood of a united Ireland in order to avoid a possible hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So in future, checks and documentation for goods moving between Great Britain and Northern Ireland are in operation and are required, as that province shares a hard land border with an EU country, the Irish Republic, unless special arrangements are negotiated as part of the ongoing EU-UK trade talks. A new Brexit border in the Irish Sea will not be ready by the end of the year deadline, according to a new analysis that warns that more than 60 administrations, government departments and public bodies will be involved in overseeing the new system. So what of monetary policy? Well, given that the overriding objective of monetary policy is surely to protect the purchasing power of the currency, or at least to keep inflation close to a wisely chosen target, future research might profitably be directed towards exploring more sophisticated monetary aggregation procedures. For example, those suggested by William Barnett and Sue in their recent 2019 macroeconomic dynamics paper, or towards incorporating risk-bearing assets into money measures, such as those used by James Swofford, Logan Kelly and myself in our 2018 Journal of International Money and Finance publication. So thank you very much for your attention, and we welcome any questions.